Hi everybody, Adam Steele here, and this is the Audient iD44 Mark II. Let's check it out, why it's good, what it does, and why I'm calling it the Mark II, even though there isn't anything written on there to describe it as such. Just to note, this is a video brought to you by me and Audient in collaboration. This is not a review video, this is more of a product demo. And here is a song that I put together using just this, with the 4 microphone inputs, using 2 close mics by Loopback and 2 microphones at the back of the room, actually facing the walls, which give a huge sound. Check it out.
To a turning of the season, witness to the arc towards the sun. The neighbor's blessed burden within reason becomes a burden born of all in one. And nobody knows. Let the yoke fall from our shoulders. Pitching hard to starboard, lay its head on summer's freckled knees, and nobody knows. Let the yoke fall from our shoulders. Don't carry it all, don't carry it all. We are all our hands in holders beneath this bold and brilliant sun. This I swear to all. This I swear to all. Buried wreath of trillium and ivy laid upon the body of the boy. Lazy will the long come from its hiding. Return his quiet search you to the soil. So raise a glass to the turnings of the season. Watch it as it arcs towards the sun. And you must bear your neighbor's burden within reason. And your labors will be born when all is done. And nobody knows. Let the yoke fall from our shoulders. Don't carry it all, don't carry it all. We are all our hands in holders beneath this bold and brilliant sun. This I swear to all. 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 To all, to all, to all.
So that back of the room Loopback 140 Air mic thing with the phase reversed so it matches the close mics and absolutely huge sounding is a trick that I learnt from Middle Farm Studios, from the guys who produced the latest Architects album. This is obviously not that, but The problem with doing that technique on most interfaces rather than dedicated really nice preamps is that to get the amount of gain required, you often bring up lots of noise and hiss. And the iD44 is so clean, that is not an issue at all. And in fact, if you listen to some of the soloed parts before and after takes, you can't hear any hiss, but you can actually hear people outside of the building. Now, if that's not resolution on the preamps, I don't know what is. These things are super, super high detail, which is great. It means that I'm not combating noise and all that kind of problem, which is a real issue on some other brands of interfaces that I've tried. But I'll try not to go down that rabbit hole because, like I said, this isn't a review video. It wouldn't be fair of me to just go nuts on other brands. So the iD44 is currently the flagship interface in the ID range from Audient, because they have the Evo, which is kind of the everyman brand, and the ID, which is the super high quality brand. They're both, I think, good, really good, but these are designed to be a cut above, and there is a bit more of a price bump that reflects that, but that's kind of how it is. You know, you get more when you pay more. And this has 4 preamps inbuilt, which, like I said, are super clean. All have independently switchable phantom power, independent pads in case you've got a really hot microphone that doesn't have a pad switch on it, or a really, really loud source and you need to tame that down. It's got high pass filter, again, individually for every channel. And then it's got its 4 line outputs, 2 completely separate with separate mixes headphone outputs, including the new little headphone output as well as the big one there on headphone 1, which is a new feature. It's also got optical, so either SPDIF or ADAT, and if you use these in ADAT mode at 44 or 48 sample rates, then you get an extra 16 in, 16 out, which makes this 24 out and 20 in, which if you add them up is 44. A new thing they've added on this revision as well is the Loopback output, which is something that they added in a couple of devices back, and the feedback has been, this is great, we need this in the 44. And the Loopback is something that guys like streamers use a lot, where anything that you can hear on a particular mix, so like game audio or mixing audio, all gets combined and fed back in on a separate recordable or streamable input called Loopback. Really, really useful for guys who are doing live production with this kind of thing. It does also on the back have a word clock output, which is really useful if you're using this with multiple optical ADAT preamp banks, that kind of thing, because then you can keep them all synchronized without having to have ADAT go both ways on each separate device. So units like Audient's own ASP 800 and 880 can all be synchronized digitally, so they all work together and play nice, and so you can have 20 channels of input going on this. This is a very slight revision from the previous iD44, which I did a video on quite a while back. It does have improved ADC specs. So the analog to digital converter was already really good. I think it was 111, 114 decibels of signal to noise ratio. It's now 120 something. So it's gone to completely insane levels. And so you can do the old SM7B test now with the gain absolutely cranked, talking into it, and not worry at all about noise either coming from the converters or from the preamps. This thing is bananas. It does have a few buttons on the front as well. It's got the ID button, which you can configure, and the F buttons, which you can also configure. It's got dim and cut for the monitoring, so you can turn things off without changing your exact level. It does have a volume knob, which can be changed to be a few different things. Like in Reaper, I use it to zoom in and out. You can also give it a quick click, and that will change levels on the volume, which is always a nice thing to have. It's got a talkback button, so if you've got someone using the headphones and they're off in the next room on an extender cable, then you can talk to them either using one of the inputs or one of the optical inputs, or with the software, you can configure it to use something else, like kind of a cheap webcams microphone or inbuilt laptop audio, to send that through just so they can hear you talking. I mean, it's a bit of a waste of a preamp to do talkback unless you've got something a little bit trashy. If you've got something great, if you've not got any spare channels left, that's a nice extra thing that you can do. So yeah, well done Audient for that. This is connected by USB-C. It still uses the USB 2 standard over USB-C. USB 3 is no faster for audio. Companies like RME have made specific videos about why they think USB is still absolutely fine. The latency on this you can get down really low. You can get down to 64 or 32 samples of latency over USB if your machine is capable of handling that, which a lot of modern ones very much are. Like the M1 Macs are absolutely fine with that. And then it all depends on processing power, and latency is always a trade-off, completely aside from whatever interface you have, of how fast the machine can process things and get it back to you compared to raw CPU power. So yeah, with modern computers I find that's less and less of a problem than it ever was. The first two preamps also have balanced insert points. So let's say you've got like a compressor like the 1176s behind me there in the rack. You can use the super clean Audient preamp into that compressor and back out on balanced cables, which a lot of gear is balanced, which means that you get arguably a cleaner signal with less chance of having hiss and noise on there. And these also can be used as line inputs as well, fully balanced, so if you've got a keyboard or such. Or if you really want to use external preamps, let's say you've got some like Neve 1073 preamps, you can, on these two preamp inputs specifically, just bypass them completely and use the insert return, which completely bypasses the Audient preamps then, and so you can have something like an API or a Neve preamp going straight into these really high quality analog to digital converters on those two channels. The other two you would have to go into the line of the Audient preamps, but they are so clean, and especially with the gain all the way down, they are completely neutral. I can't see that being a problem, but if you're being really particular for the first couple of channels, you can do that with the returns. As you can see, it looks different from the previous one. I think that it's slightly higher contrast with the black, so you can read things better in low light. That's always a nice thing. But yeah, that and the ADC and the headphone jack, I think, are the biggest changes. It's not a huge change, which brings me on to the question, if you already have the current generation iD44, should you buy this? Again, this isn't a review, but I don't think that's who this is aimed at. This is a small incremental update compared to the previous 44 unit. So if you already have one, there's no need to get another one. But if you're moving from a smaller interface, it's absolutely worth giving this a look. Like I said, this isn't the cheapest 4-channel interface that you're going to find, but it does also have the option of 16 ins and 16 outs on ADAT, which really it can expand the whole system out. And also, you get what you pay for in terms of the outputs are really loud, but also good with high impedance headphones like my Sennheiser HD650s with very low THD, distortion. The preamps are also just super clean, and if that's what you need, give this a look. Hope you found this demo useful. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to our patrons who support us on Patreon. Your names are coming up the screen there right now. And join us on our Discord to talk about this. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. And I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye everyone.